You are listening to Draw 4 Podcast. Good tidings, and thanks for joining us. I am James Kelly. I am going to be the moderator for this episode. I am a part of the production team here for Draw 4. I like modern and casual play on campus, and then also like some homebrewing and other such things like that.
My name is Joshua Kelly. I am also a member of the production team for Draw 4. I am also a student at Shepherd University studying communications and media. What do I like? I like modern mostly.
I am Joseph Dunlap. I'm the executive producer of Draw 4. I'm sitting in with the production team here since we're all one big happy family and production team.
Yay!
But I am not moderating this. James is in charge of this show, and I am just sitting in as a guest.
Yep, considering the holidays, everyone at Draw 4 had taken a break from the podcast to be able to, catch up with family, friends, such like that, finish up with finals in school. So this is a post-holiday catch-up with just Josh and I and Joseph. We're just going to have a casual roundtable discussion about our interests in Magic, our production interests as well, considering Josh and I are college students studying this kind of stuff, especially video, audio production. And then we're also going to discuss how we got started into Magic, and then if we stopped, how we got back into it. So I guess the first things first is, how did we get into Magic the Gathering? And I'm going to turn it to Joseph first.
Oh boy, the guest gets to go first.
Yep.
Okay, how did I get into Magic? And this is actually pretty akin to our community question we'll be asking at the end, right?
Yes.
Pretty
yes,
close. I got into Magic in college. And there was a group of us in college. We all played together. We were always over at each other's houses. And at one point, I just made a casual deck of each color combination that might seem interesting. Like, it was the Lorwyn block. So there was a fairy deck, there was a goblin deck, there was a Kithkin deck, and so on, merfolk as well. And I think maybe an elemental deck. And I think I also had like a 10th edition humans deck. So we just kind of would play. And it was good and casual because I really didn't have much exposure to anything but casual play. And we did that for about a year or two, maybe around that. And then people started graduating and moving away and that kind of thing. But that transitions into another question, so I'll pass it on to you guys.
Josh, if you want to go ahead. I mean, we generally share the same point, so if you feel like intervening, or if I intervene, then go ahead.
I was going to say, considering me and you were brothers, we should have started at the same time in Magic.
Wait, what? Whoa!
Yeah.
Surprise!
Twins!
But getting back to the point at hand, though, in terms of getting into Magic for James and I, it was around junior year of high school for us.
That was around Dark Ascension.
Yeah, Innistrad Dark Ascension. I remember a couple of friends were hanging out after school, and they were like, hey, you guys want to come over to the game club and play Magic with us? And we're like, oh, what's this game? What's this new little thing here? We had hang out with a couple of our friends beforehand, and we had seen them play Magic before, but we never really got into it. We just kind of jumped the gun on it, and we're just like, yeah, let's just join them. I guess you can say it was love at first sight with the game. Just everything was really interesting and fun about it. I was just really drawn to the game because we had grown up on Yu-Gi-Oh! And the Pokemon trading card game and stuff like that, so we're just like, let's see how comparable this is. As one of our friends described it, I always remember this. It was like the first day we started playing. He was like, Magic the Gathering is basically Yu-Gi-Oh! But for adults.
Oh, snap.
that'll always stick in my mind. It's just him saying that. After a little while, we actually had to take a break after we got out of high school and started college. We actually just got back into it right around when cons was coming in. And so we're just like, hey, let's just start playing it again.
Yeah, it was pretty much high school around Dark Ascension and Innistrad. And I also vividly remember this too, and Josh can attest to this. Our senior year, we got fat packs of Dark Ascension and said, okay, let's construct some decks and then just go to town and have fun with it. And so that was really the first experience of playing. It was just opening fat packs, going to town, and just having fun and playing Magic. We stopped for a little bit because of acclimating to college life. And then we were like, okay, let's get back into it. Actually, this point will lead into the community questions. I won't state names or anything, but our one friend, he broke it down as to the differences between standard and modern, and we were just like, considering the fact we don't really make much money, let's go into modern instead. And so we've been doing modern, and then since then we are, trying to branch out and see different decks and what's going on with combinations of colors or techniques and such like that. So we've just been fiddling around and then just trying to be as acclimated as we can to different kinds of deck types.
You've kind of been transitioning to the other question about stopping playing Magic at some point and then what got you back into it. Can I just go ahead and answer that question then?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, as I said, I was playing casually with friends, and it was standard deck simply because I didn't have access to anything else. It was what was being sold as people were playing in F&M, and there was a very small local game store. They were playing F&M, and it was standard, so that's what I was playing because that's the cards they were selling. It was Time Spiral Lorwyn block standard, so I actually bought a Damnation for $20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What?
When I got back into Magic, that was one of the cards I sold to the store. So
I have a story about Damnation, too, so...
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. So I quit playing because everyone moved away, and so I had to quit eventually because there was no one to play with. And that was around when Alara had been out, and I think I bought a few packs of Conflux, and that was it. So then fast forward to a few years ago when my daughter was born, and so I worked at a local game store, and I kind of felt like Jesse Pinkman for a while because I had kicked the stuff, and here I was selling cardboard crap to the customers. And it wasn't maybe a week or two before I was like, I got to get back into this game. This game's so awesome. I just didn't have anyone to play with prior because my wife gets tired of losing. And it's not that she loses, it's that I win in horrible ways, like sacrificing goblins when I have 2 boggart shenanigans on the board or stuff like that. And she's like, I'm not playing with you anymore. So I got back into it. M13 was about to rotate out along with the Innistrad block. That's when I started playing, and then Theros came out. And I worked at that local game store right up until when Journey into Nyx released. So that's my story. I gotta say that when I was playing prior, the first time I played, I was all about goblins. And then when I got back into it, I had always thought that Red-Blue was cool, and it was Return of Ravnica time. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna play Ravnica. I'm gonna play a guild. I'm gonna play Izzet because Izzet's where it's at. It was a deck that was doing Innistrad flashback stuff that was letting me draw cards like crazy. It's pretty fun. And since then, I've always tried to find an excuse to play some sort of red or blue in my deck. Currently, I'm playing red-green Eldrazi, so it's... I mean, it at least has red in it. And Eldrazi sometimes also is, green-blue, so I'm right around the neighborhood. What about you guys?
As far as currently playing, or our story as towards how we got out, or both?
I think it was, if you stopped playing Magic, then what was the reason and what got you back into it? But I think one of you already answered that.
We just stopped playing because we were worried about our grades in school and then working part-time and such like that. We were just focusing on that, not really paying attention to Magic in general. And then, like Josh had mentioned, we got back in around Khans of Tarkir, Vapor Forge, stuff like that. It was January, I remember this. And like I had alluded to earlier, I'm not naming names. Our one friend, we had him over and was just like, hey, Standard or Modern, what's up? So we just got into Modern. Josh went with Mono Red Burn, and I went with Red Green Tron. So 2 price differences there.
Well, it always varies with red aggro decks because with post Ravnica, red decks were not necessarily that cheap because they were running Boros Reckoner.
Because Boros Reckoner.
I bet.
And then there was the other version, the Boss Sly version, that also was sometimes the Rakdos aggro, and you would run Madcap skills. That was tons of fun. But go ahead.
Josh, if you want to add.
Speaking of Izzet, that was another one that I always had an interest for.
Well, when you play Modern, there's all kinds of options for Izzet, or at least 2.
Yeah, Niv Mizzets and Izzet. But that was actually one of the few ones that I kind of had on the back burner for a while. One day decided, hey, I'm just going to make one. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's something that I just like to play for fun, just more of the casual build and stuff like that. Talking more serious deck, it's mono green elves with the typical lot: Elvish Champion, Azuri, the Archdruid. One that I run personally, it's only because I could afford it over the others, was I have Imperious Perfects in the deck instead of some of the other options that people run.
Of course, me being me, I have a bunch of decks other than Tron. Everyone, when we got back to college, Tron was the bane of all evil, and they were just like, stop playing it for a little bit till you make something else. I was like, okay. So the next deck I made was Esper Mill, so the usual lot of like Glimpse the Unthinkable and such like that. So it's pretty much just been mill, up until that point, and everyone was like, stop playing Mill. So I was like, okay, what next? I had 2 decks I wanted to make at that time. It was Abzan, but not the traditional build. I do have Siege Rhino and stuff, Davany Township, Policeman Lion, but I also have Doubling Season in there because I had seen a group Josh and I both watch on YouTube play, seen them use Doubling Season in a deck. I was like, okay, cool. What about Abzan and throw Doubling Season in? And then I have a Johnny Mentor of Heroes and Elza Knight Errant in there. So it's just like, okay, gain 100 life and just F everything over.
So we were talking about Izzet decks. I had brought up that there was a few options for Izzet, but I actually didn't. I forgot to say what they were. But
it's okay.
I mean, obviously there's Splinter Twin, but there's the other option, which it's a Delver of Secrets Young Pyromancer deck. But the version that I've enjoyed looking at recently is the version that runs Days Undoing.
I've actually never heard of Days Undoing, believe it or not.
It is from the recent core set, the last core set, of course. It's 3 mana. Each player shuffles their graveyard and their hand into their library and then draws 7 cards. Now, when you're going Hellbent, which you should be if you're doing an aggro deck, then you're drawing 7 for free. And if you're playing against a mill deck, well, there's always that bonus that you get your graveyard back. It's a really nasty card against Lantern. Fortunately, it's kind of fringe, but I enjoy fringe, and that's why I play Lantern in the first place. I think we've gotten a little bit off track here because we've got a few more points before we say goodnight.
Yeah, sadly. Looking at the list, yeah. So going off topic of Magic and going into college stuff for me and Josh, Joseph, you've been working on this stuff a little while. What got all of us into producing and editing?
Getting into college, I was actually an English major, and communication was my minor. But after taking up a couple of classes dealing with production, it just seemed better with everything I was doing, and also because I know I can actually get a career outside of school without having to rely on going for graduate school and even beyond that. And so I just started getting my foot into the door with production. And actually, James and I were both at a news station over the summer doing our internships there. So I've just always found editing and production interesting.
My master's degree is in music theory and composition, so audio has always been something that I'm familiar with. If I have to record myself, for example, playing music, which I did recently for a video on our YouTube channel, I have to have a familiarity with Audacity. In fact, when my mom teaches music, one of the things that she uses now is Audacity. So Audacity is a tool that pretty much every musician, if they want to record in any way, is familiar with. So as a pianist, naturally, that is one of those things I have to know how to use. As a composer, doubly so, maybe even triply. Is that a word, triply?
We can make it a word.
It is now.
It's a word. It doesn't sound like what it means, though. So another thing about being a composer is that you have to just be well-versed in audio, because if you ever do video game music, then half the job, if not most of the job, is game audio. So it's just a territory that I'm familiar with. I've done radio before, which had nothing to do with waveforms. It just had to do with talking into a microphone, sure. But that brings me to podcasting. It's a whole other beast to podcast from anything else, even from radio, because if you're doing it over Skype, which we do on Draw 4 and Player 4, you have to account for a lot of things, such as the half-second delay, just talking in a way that's not face-to-face, so then it gets a little bit confusing about what's going on sometimes. Also, just getting used to talking in front of a microphone and hearing your own voice. And naturally, out of the 4 of us, I was the one that had the most audio experience, so I became the audio editor. And from there, just went on to be the official executive producer, you know, the person in charge of production.
I, like Josh, didn't start out as a communications major. I started as a history major, and it wasn't working, especially considering the fact of the matter, I had heard a lot of professors say, master's, doctorate, or no job for you. As far as producing and editing goes, I've, like Josh, I've been interested in producing and editing, especially watching a lot of YouTube videos. I'm like, oh, how do they do that? Or how do they do this? Especially with video editing, like some of the effects and some of the transitions and such like that. That's interested me for a little while. So I was like, okay, I want to maybe see if I can take some courses on that. And I actually did. I had taken a special effects course. And then this past semester, I had actually taken a motion graphics class. Alrighty. Sorry about that. I forgot I was moderating this episode because, Joseph.
I'm just sitting here silently waiting for someone to take the reins.
We don't have a lightning round, but as I have alluded to many times, community question, who introduced you to Magic? And it could be a group of people or it could be one person. So, in other words, who caused the addiction to cardboard crap? And actually, I will start with this one. And Josh, I'm sorry about this, but if you want to chime in, go ahead. But our friend that we had alluded to all this time was our friend John Kelly.
No relation at all.
Yeah, we kid you not. The last name is spelt the exact same, but we just have no relation to him whatsoever. We just thought it was funnier than all
John,
heck.
James, and Josh.
Yeah, John was our big introduction and push into Magic, whether or not we should go into modern or standard or such like that. So our friend John was our big influence into Magic.
I got nothing to add. You basically told the whole story. I will say this, though. James, if it weren't for John, you wouldn't have Tron today because he gave you like 80-90% of that deck.
That's a good friend.
Yeah, he gave me
very good friend.
He gave me Red Ring Tron with a stipulation of just playing Magic. I'd even asked him, he's like, dude, do you want me to pay or buy you anything to make up for the cost? He's like, no. Because he had played Red Ring Tron ahead of time, but took it apart because he didn't like the way it was going, but then realized it was getting strong again after a couple of months, and he was like, well, poop. I taken it apart, made Affinity, so I was like, all right, here. So he gave me Karn, he gave me the Worm Coil engines, he gave me all that stuff, and it was just like, whoa. So instead of paying like almost $1,000 or $1,200 or whatever it is now, I ended up only having to spend like maybe $110, $130 on the stuff. So yay, John, thank you.
So do I get to answer now?
Yes, you do, Joe.
Okay, well, I already kind of answered it. It was a group of friends that I played with. We were all learning at the same time. I kind of grasped it pretty early on, and I was teaching my friends. And then there were other people that I discovered that I was friends with that had played for a long time, so I played with them as well. And then it was just a process of learning. We all had just like casual decks that some people were just learning, and so we were building together. Some people were like, yeah, this is my elf deck I've always had, you know. A few decks were like, it wasn't too long after Onslaught, so a few people just had like Onslaught decks they hadn't touched since then, like an elf deck and that kind of thing. That's my answer, although I did have a story about that because the friend in question that was playing Onslaught Elves, I hadn't seen the Fury of Elves before. I had seen this elf explosion with artifacts as well. He was playing artifacts, and I was like, wow, what are artifacts? So I finally beat him because I went to the local store and I looked at cards they had from Time Spiral, and I found a card, Karavek the Merciless, I think is how you say it, and it was a red-green, and he was a legendary creature that said whenever an opponent casts a spell, Karavek the Merciless deals damage to him or her equal to the spell's converted mana cost. Wow. And after I played that against this particular friend, he never wanted to play with me again.
Yeah, I can see how that goes, especially if Elves was that one deck he had ran. He was like, I'm going to run Elves and nothing else, and then it's just like absolutely just ruined his game plan for that.
Yeah, you go with a linear strategy that doesn't play any removal, then something like Karavek just wrecks you if you can't win quick enough.
No answers to a streamlined problem, you are pretty much screwing yourself.
So that's my answer. It was a group of us that we all learned together. But we do want to hear from the community on who it was that got you addicted to cardboard cracks. So go ahead and leave a comment on mentalink.com on this particular episode. Let us know. If you're just listening straight on YouTube, then just leave a YouTube comment for us. We would love to hear from you. We will read any answers that we get on the next episode.
Yep, I know we need to wrap things up real quick, but this just randomly came to mind. That story about Damnation, I'm just going to spurt it out real quick. Making Mill, I have Damnations in that purely because of the fact I forgot Wrath of God was a thing. So I spent $172 on 4 pieces of paper when I could have easily spent like $20.
But then you'd have to fix the mana base to get the white in there.
No, it's Esper Mill, so it's already white.
Oh, okay.
So that was my thing. And Josh had immediately told me, he's like, dude, you forgot Wrath of God was a thing and spent $172. I was like, oh, crap.
Well, even better than that, you could be playing Supreme Verdict.
I have those in there too. I have Supreme Verdict, I have Damnations, I have Path to Exiles, I have all that stuff. I also even, considering Time Spiral, I went Time Shifted and have Darknesses in there as well because I forgot about Holy Days. Yay!
I guess since we kind of skipped over the Magic Stories question, I guess now I'm going to tell my Damnation story and then we'll be done because we got to do our goodbyes. But my story was I was playing against Time Spiral Slivers. It was a casual game right before an F&M, and it was getting nasty, you know? And I was playing mono black stuff that you shouldn't be playing on mono black.
Oh, God.
Just, vampires and demons and, all the fun black stuff. he got set up pretty quick. So by the time it was turn 4, or at least land 4 for me, I was ready to throw in the towel, and then I top decked a Damnation, the only one I owned. So I played that and immediately cleared the board and then established a presence with all my big mana stuff that then won the game. But my friends always laughed at me when I told them the story about when Damnation saved me.
Wow.
Yeah, that's definitely a good, interesting remark on towards that, especially considering Damnation's like, what, almost $60, even $70 now? I forgot the last time how much it rose in price.
Wow. Yeah, I got it for $20. Sold it to the store that I worked at when I started working there and wanted to get into Magic. I sold them a lot of my collection. I got about $250 in store credit.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I got M14 box. I got a Return to Ravnica box. Got a good amount of value. Yeah, it was a pretty good deal back then. And I had a Bitter Blossom, a Vendilion click from back then as well.
Oh, wow. You sold those?
Yeah, I don't need them.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, if you didn't need them, you didn't need them and needed the money
Nobody
for
got
it.
time for
But
that.
I was young. I needed the money.
okay, as much as I'm hating to say it and kick myself in the foot for it, I still have my Damnations, and I'm not selling them.
I'd say
Purely
hold on
because
to
I need them.
I'd say hold on to them. What is it time for now,
Yeah,
James?
just a bit. We are closing this podcast down, or at least the episode of it. So, everyone, say your farewells.
Okay, so I'm the executive producer, Joseph Dunlap, and I wish you all a fond farewell and hope you'll come back to hear us again.
Goodbye, everybody.
All right, and I have been James. That was Josh. We are part of the production team here. So now you know who gets to work behind the scenes. This has been Draw 4 Podcast. Until next time, we wish you good fortune, and may you draw well.